course. Oh, look who I got, a heavy hitter. And we're live right now. I don't know that we've ever gone live, but he is not a stranger to being live because he's done live radio and TV for years. He is the preeminent, one of the bioethicists. The dude created bioethics, for God's sake. Great to see you, Dr. Arthur Caplan. Welcome back. Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks so much for having me. Return. Back again.
To talk about with you today, of course, as there always is, a list. Can we just start with the easier, pettier, shittier things, I guess? No, not shittier, but I just got to get your comments on the general efforts and personalities now running the Health and Human Services. You got Dr. Oz, you got RFK Jr., you got Sean Duffy and RFK Jr. yesterday in the airports promoting health in the airports, as if anyone is demanding that. I'm a fitness guy. I love working out, but I've never thought about, I really wish I could get a workout in while I'm at the airport so I can get all
let me just go right to that, and then I'll piss and moan about what's going on in academia for a second. But remember, Duffy, the transportation guy, the first thing he came out with was, you should dress up better to go on planes. Dress up better? I'm going to sit in a tube for, 9 hours next to some drunk, and you want me to wear a suit and tie when I'm flying around? Then he adds,
I'm going to be drunk because I was at the airport.
Exactly. And then he says, with his buddy RFK, Mr. Steroid, by the way, hey, and while you're at it, let's do some pull-ups at the airport. So I'm going to wear a 3-piece suit, do pull-ups, and then head for the plane. I imagine sweaty, stinky. You don't want to be near me. But of course, in the cattle car world that transportation department allows, rammed together so that your knees are somewhere above your eyebrows when you're sitting. Yeah, it makes sense. And who doesn't think about doing pull-ups when you're waiting in a line at the airport? I mean, it's obvious that that's a needed locale. And let me say one other thing. Do you think maybe the two of them, or at least the transportation guy, could do something about like near collisions? How about on-time arrival? How about maintenance not falling apart on the planes? I mean, here's what I'd like to have for my health when flying: not being killed. That would be a nice.
Not dying is
not
better.
Dying. I'm all for that.
Better than dying. So first of all, a pull-up bar. I just have quickly, I was a personal trainer for years, been in the gym. Very few people can do a pull-up. So no one's using that thing. And airports are so agonizing. Most people are just going to throw a rope over that and kill themselves. It's going to be a problem.
You'll find it used as a clothes hanger as people are waiting. Maybe waiting to get in their 3-piece suit to get on the plane.
Ridiculous.
Hey, by the way, too, it's a pull-up bar. I love it because that whole administration, Trump too, is like, hey, let's return to 1963. I mean, that's when pull-up bars were. Who uses a pull-up bar anywhere?
Well, listen, now you went too far, Art. I mean, like, I love the pull-up bar. There's nothing wrong with the pull-up bar. It's still very functional. I have one right here, and I measure my fitness by it. Your other points were valid, but now I feel like you've gone a bit hyperbolic against.
No. I mean, I know what the necessary exercise equipment is. It's called walk around the airport. You don't need the pull-up bar. Come on.
Yeah, maybe slow down those conveyor belts, moving the people, and let them effing walk, Duffy.
Exactly.
That's a great.
Here's
a solution.
Here's a solution. Very cheap.
Well, what else do you want to say about in general art?
All right, so let me vent here.
Yeah.
I'm sure listeners will be going to sleep. A pity party is about to break out. Sorry, but I'm about to retire July from my administrative role. I've been running a bioethics department at NYU Medical School for 13 years, and I'm going to give up the glories of budgets and HR fights and wokeness and who's mad at who because they didn't get authorship and that sort of stuff. I'll stay active, talking to you and writing about things and moaning about things, but I don't really mind the process of starting to leave because you cannot imagine how miserable this administration has made the universities, academia, my own place. We're heavily grant dependent on medical research at our medical school. They've cut back about 25% cancer research. Forget about vaccines and all the rest of it. Cutting back cancer research? Who permits that? I mean, it's nuts. Secondly, they cut out a lot of the student scholarships. We are having the size of our classes coming in to become scientists, chopping them in half. A lot of people are saying to me, undergraduates, well, I'm not going to become a doctor or a scientist, at least on the research side. There's no dough there. Why would I take that career? Let's do something that's lucrative and guaranteed, like be a comedian. Um, you know, and you have two people sitting there saying things like, let's get rid of diversity, equity, and inclusiveness. Scrub your sites. Well, I'm going to say, you know what? Diversity, equity, inclusiveness, pretty good values. I'm for them. I don't want to wipe them off my website. I don't want to ban them from lecture titles or grant application. And that's what's going on. It's like as if Stalin showed up and said, hey, this doesn't conform to party ideology. Wipe out this language. Get rid of it. And we got eugenics and genetic bilge. This president sits around calling people garbage, trash, sources of disease. He brings all these billionaires in like Musk, who clearly are racist to the core. And all of a sudden, we're sitting there saying nothing because us academics, because we can't say anything about diversity. I mean, here's what you say about it. These guys are proto-Nazis. I mean, this regime is tilted completely over to a racist foundation of white supremacy in its policies. That's what it's doing. And, I don't care where you look, you can see their bigotry being made into politics. I mean, you see it most clearly with ICE and the immigration stuff. But let me tell you, when you put in a grant, if I said something like, I'm concerned about equitable access for African Americans to transplant, that ain't getting funded.
Let's talk more about the research cuts and what it means, because I feel like that's one of the undercovered stories. I mean, did you say that they cut back on cancer research 25%? I don't understand how that could be or what that looks like. Was it only cancer research that affects trans people? Because that would make sense.
No, it's for all of us. Why? Partly because RFK Jr. has it in his head that if you stop using seed oils, get rid of food dyes, do pull-ups at the airport, you won't get cancer. So his approach starts to be what I'm going to call victim blaming. Why did you get cancer? Your fault. Whether you were in a family that had a genetic predisposition, or you inherited genes for breast cancer or pancreatic cancer, his dim-witted view is that, it's personal behavior that's going to be the solution to cancer. And this comes at a time, we have something called mRNA vaccines. They were the basis of the COVID vaccines. People went nuts with them. What they basically do is trick cells into attacking unwanted invaders in your body, viruses like COVID or flu or whatever. We didn't have that technology up until COVID. A lot of people hate them, fear them, have gone nuts about them. This is where you get Kennedy saying, we got to ban COVID vaccines because they rely on this mRNA technology, snipping basically genes out of some cells and turning them into warriors against invading cells. Well, you know what cancer is? It's an invading cell. You know what we're on the verge of is using that mRNA technology to make vaccines to kill cancer. But they hate mRNA vaccines in the administration. By the way, for listeners, remember Jimmy Carter kept living with his melanoma? He was getting experimental skin cancer vaccines that worked. It kept him alive at least a couple more years.
Wow.
And we're on the verge of more of those. And they're not funding that stuff. And that is nuts.
So much nuts, so much craziness, especially when it comes to vaccines. Let me just quickly ask, I don't know if this is a question that you're, but when you talk about trying to prevent the research into the science, and in this case, vaccines that would prevent or cure cancer or treat cancer. That's obviously one approach. The other approach is identifying what causes cancer and trying to prevent that. And if what causes cancer is our consumption of certain foods or the air we breathe or water, living conditions or something like that, is there any possibility that they, are doing something to identify the causes? Because science has always been looking for the causes. I think we know there's a pretty strong link between things like lung cancer and smoking.
Sure.
And we can go on about certain behaviors and obesity and so on. But what's your answer to that?
So here's where Kennedy is as the chief health guy. He's pursuing, if you will, environment, but it's bizarre. It's this sort of, we got to get away from, seed oils, and we've got to make sure we take our supplements and this sort of stuff. What they're shutting down at the same time at the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, and other monitoring agencies are exactly what you're talking about.
Right.
What's the impact on cancer of industrial pollution? What do you do if you cite every dump next door to a minority neighborhood, which is almost always what happens? What's their cancer rate look like? If you live in North Jersey and you drive down the turnpike and you see all the oil industry stuff blowing its waste, you would call that the cancer corridor. But we don't have to worry about that anymore, because in their wisdom, they've decided, let's not collect data on that. That'll make the cancer rates go down because we won't know about them. We'll have no numbers. They're not taking on the industries. They're not taking on the real, I'll say, environmental causes of cancer, really trying to get, let's just say, pesticides out of food. How about that one? I'm all for that. We know that there's dangers in the way our agriculture works. Is Kennedy talking about that? No.
So, perfect answer. Let me move on to, though, just one more question around, I guess, this, which is specifically one of the most outrageous things that has happened, I think, and maybe you can cite something more outrageous, but it feels to me like this is the kind that probably resonates and has an immediate effect that reverberates, was when RFK Jr. and then the president himself said that there is a link between Tylenol and vaccines, and that pregnant women shouldn't take Tylenol. And then a lot of people did a little research and find out why pregnant women take Tylenol is because they get really ill, and Tylenol is the thing that helps. And it's then, I think Trump said, walk it off, basically. But
right, suck it up.
But that there is a connection between Tylenol and autism, rather. And I think it's a Tylenol vaccine, Tylenol and autism. What kind, like, does anything else so publicly do damage? That seems like a very easy thing for people to hear. Tylenol, pregnancy, don't do it, or your kid's going to be born. And it's your fault, by the way. The other aspect of that is that people who do have kids who are autistic then blame themselves for taking Tylenol and not.
They're selfish. They decided their fever and their terrible pain from whatever they got when they were pregnant, they're going to put that over the interests of their baby. Who does that? Nobody does. Mothers don't do that. That's insulting in the extreme to women. But the Tylenol autism link is so bogus. I don't know. You're probably right. It's a contender for maybe stupidest cause and effect claim that I've heard out of this administration and out of Kennedy, Oz, and Trump. Why? Because the mechanisms of how Tylenol work don't have anything to do with the behavior that results when you have autism. Secondly, autism isn't a single thing, right? There are geniuses who are autistic. There are people in institutions with severe autism. The idea that it's all one thing, that's wrong. Kennedy talks about it like, and you don't want to get autism because that means you're going to be incontinent in an institution having somebody spoon feed you. And I agree, and that's probably where Musk belongs as the most visible autistic guy running around. I mean, again, it causes this range of stuff. How does that work? We know that autism has been around before Tylenol. How's that for a reputation? I mean, Tylenol started getting marketing, I think, in the mid-90s. There's plenty of autism diagnosed before that. Have the rates of Tylenol use been going up like the rates of autism have been going up? No, they're pretty steady. So it makes me think that's not a cause and effect. So I don't know where they came up with this thing. They promised, I don't know, for a couple of months earlier, they're going to come up with big news and
Right.
solve the autism thing. And this was it. And it was like the biggest nothing burger ever produced.
I believe the maker of Tylenol is suing them as well. I'm not sure.
Oh boy, I would.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah,
be.
certainly. And along the lines of, when we talk bioethics, it seems like one of the classic issues would be vaccine mandates, to kind of discuss and debate whether or not that we should, governments and society should have them or not, and mandating vaccines. And generally, vaccines are mandated through public school, right? Entry, when you're not going to be able to go to school.
State laws saying you need them to go to school.
Right. And so that's the best way to make them work and to be effective. And often they're given before the baby even leaves the hospital, because otherwise that mom may never come back. And that
some listeners may have heard about the fight now about hepatitis B vaccine.
That's what I was getting to. Yeah.
And you have to give that right away. And the goofballs on the vaccine advisory committee, the list of goofiness being very long now, unqualified people who don't know what they're talking about, they keep saying, well, you don't have to give it at birth because the baby hasn't been sleeping with prostitutes or showing up at gay bars where hepatitis might be communicated. It is true there's sexual transmission of hepatitis. It's also true that you can get hepatitis if you get scratched. It's also true you can get hepatitis because it lingers for about a week. This is a toilet seat disease, by the way. So you want to get vaccinated because you can get exposed to blood as a baby, as a newborn, all over the place. And I'll add one other thing. Maybe mom is pure and wonderful, but that doesn't mean that dad was, and dad wasn't exposed somehow to hepatitis in his life that he didn't know by his rampaging dating life or whatever he was doing. You want to vaccinate the baby. There's been no safety issue. Why are we changing the schedule? And we know we save and prevent cases. Makes no sense whatsoever. But let me say one word about the mandates.
Yeah.
It's the ethics stupid, to quote James Carville, I think it was, on the economy stupid.
Yeah.
Here, why are we vaccinating and mandating? It's not just to protect your kid. It's because if you don't vaccinate, you choose not to, then my kid, who's got an immune disease or was born needing cancer therapy or had a transplant, can't be vaccinated because it doesn't work because their immune system doesn't work. I don't want your kid to infect my kid. And I also don't want your kid to infect grandpa when he comes to visit. Or I don't want your kid to infect the newborn that we were just talking about who doesn't have any immunity when mom brings him over to show him off to the family and all that sort of thing. What I mean by the ethics is you have a duty to protect your neighbor. You have a duty to protect the vulnerable. They can't do it themselves. And where I think some of the vaccine arguments have gone off track, this isn't about the safety of vaccines. That's bogus. These vaccines are safe for kids. It's selfishness. It's just saying, I don't want to do it. I'm not going to do it. I choose not to do it. Kennedy says, I'm not anti-vaccine. I just want you to have choice. Well, here's the rebuttal. If you don't mandate vaccines, the choice will be, I'll kill that neighbor's kid.
Well, you make it pretty stark, but I do think, just to be clear, there is a certain strain or percentage of Americans and people living around the world that don't care about their neighbors or the vulnerable. I think we saw that during COVID. I think that shared sacrifice is something that America hasn't made since World War II. We don't necessarily care.
I couldn't agree more, but let's take it on and let's call it out.
No doubt.
And let's say, hey, you know what? You don't vaccinate your kid to help others, you're an asshole.
I mean, not only that, if you have more items than the person behind you at the grocery store, move aside. Like, these are kind of, thoughtful behaviors. It's not, these are the easiest behaviors in the world to help a stranger. There could be almost nothing.
Here's what the Florida Surgeon General said when he said we're going to do away in the state of Florida with childhood vaccine mandates to go to school. We're going to get rid of them. And some reporter properly said, well, that's going to cause an increase in deaths among kids who can't get vaccinated. You know what he said? Well, that's the cost of liberty. The cost of liberty is to kill kids in Florida? I know that's an attitude you hear about gun laws. Now it's being extended into vaccines. I'm going to say it again. It's bogus ethics.
Bogus. Well, it's not ethics.
It's not ethics. It's selfishness. It's, I don't know, almost a kind of indulgence, self-indulgence.
You're a bioethicist, one of the most respected in the country, and you've been in and around this world for your whole career. I don't think we've ever really asked about teaching ethics. I didn't learn about it being a subject, course, a study until I think I was in college and I heard about it. And I didn't study it. My brother-in-law, I remember, gave me an ethics book.
Yeah.
I was like, "What's this? Where is the appropriate time? Is it slipped in all of our childhood lessons? Like, I feel like Mr. Rogers taught me ethics.
Yeah.
But I mean, is there a formal way, or even a PBS way that it should be taught to young kids? Much less, because it seems that we have lost a lot of care and respect for our humanity in a lot of ways. When we're rooting for people to bleed out in the sea, and we're pro-torture and pro-war, and COVID. Yeah. What does it belie?
So, two things about teaching ethics. It has to start early, but it should be continued throughout the education system. I mean, I know people disagree about ethics, and that's okay, but at least knowing how to think it through, what's a good argument, what's a bad argument, where do the foundational principles come from, blah, 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 blah. So I wouldn't do it as a single dose course in the 4th grade. You want to kind of continue. But honestly, what's happened is religious groups got it out of the curriculum because they said, we don't want you teaching what I'm going to call secular ethics to our kids. We'll take care of it at the church or the synagogue or wherever they are. And they don't. I mean, they don't weirdly teach ethics. What do they teach? A version of Jesus who says, I'm selfish, and I think people who profit are rewarded and acting in my name.
Yeah.
I hate to put it this way, but what would Jesus do about vaccination? I kind of think he'd tell people to get vaccinated to protect other little kids.
I don't know if they were needed during Jesus's time, because he could also just put his hand
that's true. That's true.
on your forehead.
And even if things got bad, he could wake you up from the dead. So
that's right. That's right. He was very talented. It's really interesting to hear that. We can talk more about it. But before I let you go, I just going to ask you one more question about the cuts to healthcare. And what, when we talk about healthcare costs, and we need to talk about the quality, the cost, and the accessibility. And we can talk about all what drives those costs and so on. But the bottom line is people's healthcare costs health insurance costs are really about to jump. And the sticker shock is going to mean that a lot of people are just going to go without health insurance. And that creates a death spiral for everybody else in the insurance risk pools and so on. But what are your top line takeaways or concerns about?
So first, here's my political advice. If you don't like Trumpism and you want to see Congress shift in its makeup in the next election, you got a 2-issue campaign: affordability of your food and cost of living, lack of affordable health care. Those are the issues. I don't care about transgender, and I don't want to talk at all about, shooting up these poor bastards on boats, war crimes. I mean, those are all bad. But the core issue, you can't afford your meals because of these stupid economic policies, tariffs. And the big, beautiful bill that's about to come without any remedy by a Republican president and Congress is going to disenfranchise a huge number of people who now get Medicaid, a large number of people who now, depending on Obamacare, because they get subsidized to pay the costs. The Republican idea that I've heard is give every American $2,000 and let them buy their own health insurance. Well, that'll be interesting. $2,000, you know what that's going to buy you? Band-Aids and maybe some Tylenol. But
by the way, every time I hear that, I need to interrupt and remind people that's what Obamacare is. You get a subsidy to buy health insurance on a market. That's what it is.
It is, but it's not $2,000.
It's more money than that. Yeah,
it's much more money because
it's not a solution. They explain it like it's a solution. No, it's Obamacare, but you get way less for your money, and
I'll buy that. Yep. I think that's a good way to put it. How about this proposal? We'll cut your subsidy, and then it won't be Obamacare anymore. you'll just be unable to buy anything.
It'll
So
yeah.
if this goes, and I think it is, I'm not seeing any effort to stop it by that Congress and that president, then I think what you're going to see is a lot of people making new friends at the ERs, because that's where they're going to go when you don't have insurance. You jam up the emergency room and just show up there. I don't know. Last time I went there, I had a burn that I got, sunburn, and I went to the ER just to get some burn treatment, if you will. I don't know. Waited. This is Connecticut, nice hospital. 7 hours.
If
Now
I were
imagine what
you,
it's going to be like with this crowd showing up, the uninsured, newly uninsured. It'll be days.
if I were you with your career and your name, I would last 2 hours before I would scream, "Do you know who I am? What I
Hey, listen,
do to this ER, much less this entire hospital complex?" By the
that
way,
is that is my wife's view, but I do have to remind you, we just went through a little bit about ethics, and
yes, I
how
know
about we
you.
look out for the neighbor? That is,
Well, I should mention that last time I waited in the emergency room too long, I screamed, "I'm Arthur Caplan," and I don't know if that got back to you at all. By the way, it's not the smart. You don't go to the ER, and make friends. I mean, I see what you're saying. That's going to happen, but I would suggest that people make their friends when they lose their health insurance. The way I did when I lost my health insurance, when Sirius XM ended and I lost my health insurance, I targeted doctors, including you, almost immediately, and became friends with physicians. That's what people should do. Just subtly curate relationships with people that are healthcare experts.
And one other sort of endpoint about this health insurance business. Trump promised he would work, and some in Congress did too, to bring down the prices. The reason we're stuck in a mess is that our healthcare system still costs 3 times as much as anywhere else. So it's unaffordable. So that's why we are in this how are we going to pay for it problem. It's not that we couldn't. You got to get the prices down. How do you do that? Well, you can do what Trump says, which is I'll put tariffs on drugs coming from China or whatever his idea is. Ridiculous. It's not worked at all. Or how about we have more price transparency? Who knows what they're paying when they go to the hospital? And more to the point, how about we actually sit in there and say to the government, negotiate the prices. Use your buying power to set the price. That's what every other country does. We don't bargain here.
And I think you would know a thing about this, doesn't the VA do that?
VA does it. Military medicine, its own system, does it. And the drug companies put up with it. You know why? That way they cut off the political griping of the vets who otherwise would be paying high prices and left out in the cold. So they bought them off.
Well, they don't want to buy off the people on Medicaid because they're lazy.
Yeah, and they don't work.
By
the way, let us remember who is on Medicaid. Single head of household females, disabled people, poor children, elderly in nursing homes. Yeah, I think it's a pretty good workforce.
A lot of those people are lying about their elderliness.
Yeah.
They could do more.
There are a lot of phony wheelchairs out there, too.
I have many more issues to talk to you about, but out of time. I appreciate the time that you gave us. You give us any time, Dr. Arthur Caplan. Thank you very, very much for joining me as always.
Hey, thanks for having me. Really enjoy it.
Everybody watching live, thank you for stopping by. Tell your friends, patreon.com/Pete Dominic, and I will talk to you later. Bye, everyone. Thank you.